Hi everyone. Hi, 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 hi. I'm not saying everyone, there's gonna be a lot of people because it's early in the morning on Tuesday, I think. But no, is it Tuesday? Yes, it is Tuesday. But I wanted to get this box off of my table. Today is like one of those long workday days. And so, A, to break up some readings in a row, and B, to start to clear off some piles off of my table. I thought I would do a quick walkthrough of this, and it is just quicker to do it live and hit when it's done, and it's put up. So that's how I'm doing it. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. I am, good morning, Miss Michelle. I am getting over a flu, some kind of flu-y thing. And so excuse my voice and maybe having to take a couple extra drinks because I'm just kind of getting over stuff. And so, hello, Miss Nikki and Austin. There are some people. I won't be all by myself. That's a good thing, right? That's always a good thing. It's fun to have at least people to talk about. Have you guys seen this deck yet? You know, the funny thing is that if you've watched my channel enough, you know that ancestor style decks are ones that are going to really attract my attention, right? I work a lot with my own personal ancestors. I do ancestral readings a lot. So it is definitely part of my practice, I should say, on a very regular basis. So I was really excited when I saw this. But then I was a little bit, I had seen some of the cards. I haven't seen all of the cards. And so I hadn't, but I started to see a couple of the cards filter through. And I was kind of, the titles of the cards and things like that, I was kind of like, I don't know if this really goes along with the way that I would use ancestral cards. I don't know. I started to get a little bit, I had gone from the artwork and being like, I was buying this the second it came out, to being a little bit iffy. Like I'm not sure if this is something that I would add to my thing. But I decided to give it a go and take a look at it because I do love some of the artwork. So let's take a look and see what we can see. So the deck we're looking at is the Ancestral Spirit Oracle cards. This is by Jade Sky with the illustrations by Belinda Morris. I believe Jade Sky has done another Oracle deck. Maybe it's about crystals. I don't have it. I don't tend to work with a lot of crystal Oracle decks, but I want to say she might have done a crystal Oracle deck, but don't quote me on that. This is what company is this? This is a Blue Angel deck. Hello, Miss Mindy. Hello, Aphrodite. Love the mom vibes. I am a mom. I am glad to have mom vibes. So on the back it says, answer the call of the ancestors to connect to their wisdom, discover their truths, and accept their support. And it's got some neat, I don't know if you can see that, but the cards on the back are glossy. And it actually really is cool in person. It really does make those cards pop out. I don't think I've seen that before on Blue Angel, but I do like it. You know, the front is very, very matte, and then those cards really do pop off of the back. So I do like that. Typical Blue Angel box. It's a beautiful, sturdy box, which, you know, I'm a fan of. So good for that. I have taken the band off of this. There was a plastic band on this, which I'm not a huge fan. Oh, I didn't even notice the backings. So that's pretty cool. It's different. It's not reversible. That doesn't bother me either way. But that's a different backing. I like that you're kind of sitting down at the fire, right, to communicate with your oh, maybe I'm wrong then. Oh no, Nikki says she did a little affirmation deck from Rockpool called Divine Directions, and then the Eternal Crystals. Yes, okay. I thought I'd seen her name on a crystal deck. I like that backing for an Ancestor deck. I think that works. It's different. And then here is the front. Obviously, they are colored. They are borderless. Not obviously they're borderless. They are borderless. I can see my ancestors straight on the first first of the deck, first image on the deck there. And so that's what we got there. Let's take a look at the guidebook. Now, I did take a bit of a look at the guidebook because I wanted to, I think we'll set that right there. Then people can see what we're talking about. Well, once I take those cards away. I did take a little peek at the guidebook only to see whether or not it describes or it says where the culture is from, right? I actually do like multicultural decks. Like for me, my favorite is Angels and Ancestors. I really do love that deck. I know not everybody does, but I have found it to be an amazing working deck and I absolutely love it. But what I do like is if they are going to be multicultural, I do like for there to be an indication of what is the culture being portrayed in the card so that A, people can know what that is, just as a knowledge base, but B, you're giving credence or you're giving affirmation to the culture that's being depicted here, which I think is helpful. And this does seem to do that. It very specifically, if it's Native American, it's showing the tribe that's being there. And it's right at the very beginning. You don't have to go hunt for it. It actually gives you a pretty nice, for an Oracle deck, right? It's giving you a nice little chunk of information about the culture that is there. And then now again, I have no clue how accurate this is, this is just a first impression, but at least there is information there on each of the cultures, which I enjoy, or that to me is a big plus. So you have a little black and white thumbnail of the card. You have the information that would be on the card itself. And then you have a chunk of information about the culture that's being portrayed. There's a message called The Ancestors Speak. This one's been a couple that I looked at were a little iffier for me. I don't tend to use these types of things. I kind of just use the card itself. Some of these were like, okay, I'm not sure every single time there was one that was like, okay, well, you must be I don't know, like just pulling something out randomly, like you must be a shaman, literally like you must be a shaman inside of you and this kind of thing. And it was just like, well, every time you pull that card, like that's probably not the case. Like every person isn't going to be everything that's listed here. But I did find the divinatory meanings to be helpful as well. But I found this to be more interesting than this. Again, just in a quick look, because this is first impressions. But it does give you something to work with if you're like, okay, what do I do with this card? I like that there is a divinatory meaning. So we'll see as we go. We'll read a couple of these as we go along. And thank you, Miss Nikki. I am going to try to stay pretty focused just so that people watching this back as a walkthrough don't get too sidetracked, at least as we go through the main deck. I try to keep my walkthroughs where I'm paying attention to the deck in question. So if I miss your questions or anything like that, I do apologize. It's just the nature of this kind of a video where I want to stay useful when people watch back. Take another drink. Okay. So guidebook there. The pluses, again, I like that we have information about the culture. So I'm going to be keeping that out because we'll want to look at what the cultures are as we go along. The cardstock is fantastic. This is Blue Angel at its best. It's matte, but not sticky matte. It's borderless. You can see the icon, even with my poor eyesight, I can see even the smallest text very comfortably. I probably would have a little trouble with the smallest text without my glasses, but it's not bad. So I really like that. So yeah, this is fantastic. I wish every deck came out with this cardstock. I'm not sure why they still kind of sometimes, you can have newer decks that will still be not the best cardstock. Let's move in there a little bit better. There we go. We're finding a way to do these live ones. This first one does look Game of Thrones like, doesn't it? Okay, let me move this out of the way. So I love that. Again, the artwork is by Belinda Morris, and I was very much attracted to the artwork. Let's see what they say in the introduction here. Many blessings and thank you for selecting Ancestor Spirit Oracle cards. It's not a coincidence that you've been drawn to this oracle. The Ancestor Spirits have been calling to you and have been patiently waiting for you, or not so patiently, depending on your ancestors, to listen to them. They have wanted to connect with your energy for quite some time. Pay attention to the messages of the ancestors, and they will offer answers to your questions and guidance to your life journey. So it does talk about how they're going to go to all of the different cultures of the world has its own wisdom, its own knowledge, its own tradition, and it tries to tap into this cycle of story, song, and dance that we keep our stories alive with. So that's what we have here. Oh, that's nice to see. Susan has said, I've had this deck for about a month and I really like it. The messages I get are pertinent to me. That's fantastic to hear, from somebody who's had a chance to read it. I will say there are a couple, I forgot to mention this. There's a past, present, future. I don't know. I don't know that these need to be put in guidebooks. Like, it seems like everybody can do a past, present, future. But this I love. I like spreads that have to do with the oracle that we're looking at. Sorry, my sisters are blowing up my phone, and even the vibrating, it's on vibrate, but even that's like distracting. So I like that there's something that is more pertinent to the topic at hand versus something like a past, present, future that I feel like everybody can do on their own. So that's good to see there. Okay. Let's get looking at this. So yes, the very first one we can see are Vikings here. Now these actually look like Vikings. And this is definitely a pet peeve. Like, not all Norse or Nordic people are Vikings, right? Vikings very specifically speak to people who were going out a Viking, right? I think it might have naturally have been a adjective, like more, we're going to go, I don't quote me on that, but it is about a group of people from the Nordic cultures who went a Viking and went off to conquer new worlds and go to find land and resources and all of that. So I do appreciate that this in the guidebook says they are fierce warriors who commanded sailing ships and weapons to defeat their enemies on sea and land. So I do like at least that they separate out the fact that these are a specific subset of people who are going out a Viking. Now, this works for me because my ancestors were both Norse, but they did, my Irish ancestors came over as Vikings and then stayed in Ireland. So that actually works for me quite well. Let's just read this one and see what it says. Vikings are renowned as fierce warriors who demonstrated superhuman strength. Not sure about that. They were just strong humans, and commanded sailing ships and weapons to defeat their enemies on sea and land. A fatalistic outlook. I don't know if I wouldn't use fatalistic, and a belief in the afterlife allowed Vikings to face death courageously, both in battle and on their long, dangerous sea voyages. They believed in gods and goddesses, as well as mythological creatures such as water spirits, dwarves, giants, and elves. Vikings respected their deities and considered them more powerful than humans, but also saw them as human-like in that they ate, fought, drank, and played tricks on people, and had a lot of sex. Let's not skip that for the sake of the guidebook, right? I'm so sorry. I may find that this was a bad idea after recovering here. Many Viking warriors couldn't wait to fight by the side of their gods in the afterlife. life. These risk takers brave dangerous waters and traveled far from their homelands in Scandinavia, relying on their knowledge of the stars, the moon, the ocean, and its wildlife to guide them. Their keen physical and intuitive senses also help steer their journeys. So that's what we have. And then what it gives us here is an ancestor speak. It says, it's time for you to wake up and live again. You're here on this earth for a reason. Don't waste your time. Embrace life. Explore the world with every ounce of your soul. Take risks. Think outside the box. Journey to unknown places. Follow your instincts and live your life to the fullest. And then it has a divinatory meaning. The universe chose you to be here for a specific reason. It is up to you to discover that reason and go for it. Answer your call. If you are tired and fed up with life, focus on the courageous energy of the Vikings. Call upon your spirit guides to give you the positive energy to enjoy your life. You may also like to challenge yourself with some activities and experiences that make you feel alive and give you a boost of adrenaline. Take risks and enjoy. So that's what we have for the text here. So I do like this as answering the call. It kind of goes with the hero journey as well. Explore, travel, and live. Of course, many of these peoples and Vikings weren't the only people. They just were very good at, going out into other lands. It was also something that was necessary, right? There were limited resources where they were. And so in order to live, they were having to go out and conquer as well. So there's obviously a lot that goes into it, but I mean, at least gives you the flavor here. And again, I like that they really put the Viking terminology strictly to this sort of seafaring people that were going out and a Viking. So there we have that. And the artwork is beautiful. I'm not going to read all of them. I just like to give you an idea of what the text is going to sound like if you look at it. So here we have awaken your inner shaman, connect, invoke, and heal. Now, what is interesting the most to me is this part, which is that we know the actual culture. It's not just some random culture that's being put on here. So this is the Tuvans. I'm not sure if you pronounced that correctly, but they are nomadic cattle herders who lived in southern Siberia for thousands of years. And I believe I may be incorrect, but I feel like I'm correct, that the term shaman actually is a Siberian word, but don't quote me on that. And so that's who we have here about in using to awaken that shamanic energy that is within and use that to connect to the spirits, to invoke the spirits, to use spirit energy to heal, which is traditionally what would, a shaman would certainly reflect what a shaman would do. So I do like that there. So again, we know the culture that's being portrayed here, and that I think is fantastic. Here we have back to the basics, simplify, reduce, and center with the San, S-A-N, who are the oldest known inhabitants of southern Africa and have lived in the desert regions of the Kalahari for the past 20,000 years. Thank you, Kristen. Kristen verified that it was that it was no. Yeah, it's definitely not a Western word. I believe it is Siberian. It has then been incorporated as being. Yeah, I don't find that the term shaman is an appropriative term from my understanding. At least it isn't for me. It's not, I think it's used incorrectly sometimes, but it was a true word. And then I think it was used by anthropologists to sort of bring together a core set of ideals or ways of acting. So certain ways of being and connecting to the spirit world that we see in many, many, many different cultures were kind of pulled under the term of shaman. And so, yeah, it's not my favorite word depending on how it's being used. If it's being used correctly, I have no issue with it. If it's being used incorrectly, then we're just kind of propagating incorrect information, right? So unfortunately, it's one of those things that key people in, like this. Well, this isn't called a shaman deck, but some shaman decks are, I'm not sure if that's really about anything shamanic. And some of them are. So it can be a keyword to tap you into that sort of more earth based, spirit based journeying, some of the same sort of techniques that are used across many different indigenous cultures from many different lands. And so it kind of is like a keyword to tap you in, but it can obviously be used ways that are not correct and can be misleading for sure. Anyways, I think this was a very appropriate connection with this particular peoples, at least. So that's good to see. So here we have one that is about kind of simplifying that you don't need as much as you think you need to survive, which makes sense with a culture that has existed for so long in a desert region, and which is probably, it's teeming with life that we don't see. Just because it's not green and lush and jungly does not mean that a desert isn't teeming with life, because it is. But I would say it's probably a much more difficult existence and doing with and being continually in search for the basic needs and necessities. It makes sense for that. So I do like that. Beautiful. Her artwork is really gorgeous. This is Belinda Morris's artwork, I think, is really gorgeous. I don't know if she's ever done a deck before. I don't recognize the artwork, but it is beautiful. So this one is called Balance Yourself. We have the directions, growth, and the different stages of life that we have depicted here in what I would assume is a medicine wheel. But again, one of the things that I do like is that it doesn't just kind of leave this as this vague medicine. Sorry, I know I'm leaning down so I can look, and then you're just seeing my head, top of my head. But if you look here, it actually, I don't want to slaughter their name, Nehayawak, but I'm sure that's not correct. First Nation people of Canada, also known as the Cree. And so again, instead of just having a medicine wheel that is just like, well, every native tribe uses the same medicine wheel, which is not going to be so, right? Everybody, native cultures, and at least in the United States, they have very different belief systems. Some of them cross over, some of them don't. So I really do like that it isn't treating them as a homogenous Native American, but is going very specific to the tribe. So that, again, is a plus for me. Balance yourself, direction, growth, and life stages. This is beautiful. I think this is Zulu. I think this is one I looked at. Yeah. So be an open channel, mediumship, ancestors, and spirits. And this is about the Zulu people place great importance on looking after and honoring their ancestors, who they refer to as, and I'm not going to slaughter that term, as ancestors protect, guide, and help the living family members can connect to the divine consciousness. Anyways, it goes in here. Again, I have not done any research to see whether, how accurate is that. I don't know a lot about the Zulu people other than bits and bobs, but nothing very, deep into the understanding of the Zulu people. So I have no clue yet. I will go through and kind of do some searching on each of these just to get a feel for how accurate that might be. But at least, again, it's a specific culture. So it's a gorgeous image. Okay, so next, and I know that I'm going to say that a lot, but it's important, right? I do think if you're going to have a multicultural deck, which I do enjoy, and some people enjoy them, some people do not, but I do enjoy tapping into the different cultures, especially in an ancestor deck like that. But I want to know, what are you trying to depict here versus just this big kind of blob of different cultures. So that really makes me happy to see that. It's important to me. So this is Be Thankful, and this is connected to the Balinese philosophy of life. So I'm assuming this is from Bali. Be thankful, gratitude, appreciation, and harmony. So obviously giving thanks, giving gratitude, honoring your ancestors, which is beautiful here. Mendy says that there is another oracle coming in 2022 called the Powerful Woman Oracle, also with Blue Angel. I wonder if she's Australian. What I do like so far is that there does seem to be, and we're not very many cards in, right? But we have women, we have men. This, I'm assuming this could be either, but that might be male. We have a male and a female. So it does seem, at least as if so far, there seems to be a mix of genders here as well, which I appreciate. And so that's good to see so far. Again, we're not that far. We're not that far in, but so far so good, right? I'm assuming we can see runes in the background here, but then more beautiful what's that called? My brain again. I'm recovering from a flu. Manuscripts, beautiful, like illuminated manuscript type things here. So the inscriptions are in Elder Futhark in the back, the only surviving remnants of the language spoken by Germanic tribes. But then it shows it's really talking more about the development, because then it talks about by the Middle Ages, Scandinavia had developed new boundaries and the alphabet progressing. So I really like that, because it shows sort of the Germanic, which of course split off to English and Icelandic and German and Swedish, and like all of those languages that came out of the Proto-Germanic Elder Futhark alphabet. But it shows that progression. It's not just about that. It's about that progression of language or of writing. And so I think that's pretty cool there. So, and the card is for, begin to write now, create, express, inspire. I kind of like these bottoms so far. I like the bottom three more than I do so much the top meaning here. So then here we have another one for clear your mind. The Pyraha. I'm gonna show this one. I can't have any clue. Pyraha, I'm sure that's not correct, are an isolated tribe of hunter-gatherers who have lived in the rainforest in Brazil. And this is another one that I read when I was skimming to see if it would have this information. And it talks about them not sleeping for very long periods of time and staying very much present and in the here and now and focused on what they need to be focused on. And so that certainly makes sense if that's true. That certainly makes sense with this particular card. Again, I really love her artwork. That is beautiful. I'm assuming that was probably Sami. Yes, the Sami of the Nordic countries were originally nomads. Again, gives you some descriptions here. And very connected with their reindeer here. And I mean, look at how beautiful the eye and the face. This is just beautiful. It really looks like being connected. So, just because they relied on the reindeer for everything, right? For their clothing, probably for their tents, for their food, for travel, for, there was such a symbiotic relationship between the two of them. And to honor that versus just kind of make use of it and discard is really powerful. Here we have connect with past loved ones, which is kind of a weird one for me. I think I did see this one. I have to admit it's a weird one to me, because like the whole deck is about ancestor spirit, right? So the whole deck is about connecting to our ancestors. So I did think that was a little bit strange. And there was one question I had. If you've watched me, sometimes I just make piles because it helps me to see. I thought there was one we've already hit on about your ancestors. Yeah, I'm going to just kind of make a pile and see if we have a lot of duplicate cards about connecting to our ancestors. But it's beautiful here. And this is the Aztecs. And they talks about how they had a complex cosmology and ritual calendar dedicated to their deities. And I think this is talking about how this morphed into and turned into what we now know of as the Day of the Dead. But I think that this is probably more very specifically connecting to and honoring like on a specific day. But again, it's absolutely beautiful artwork. And I'm just going to make a pile of sort of connecting with like ancestors, past loved ones, because that's kind of what the whole deck is supposed to already be doing. So we'll see. Let's see how that goes. Connect with water, ocean, water spirits, and hydrate. The Sama Bahau, again, so sorry, of maritime Southeast Asia. We have here beautiful colors. I love the greens and the blues and the colors. I did see this one and loved it. We kind of have that idea of the cunning folk and the European traditions, right? That's what I'm assuming be like Anglo-Saxon or England or something along that nature, because you have that. But look at the little I don't know if you can see those. So you can see, look at the face in the tree, the little earth, like little earth spirits there. So that feels very like English tradition, Anglo-Saxon. Yes. During the early Anglo-Saxon period, yeah, so we have earth magic, nature, rituals, and charms. So I love having that there. I think that is beautiful and certainly connects to my traditions. This was a card that I did think was the most problematic that I've seen. And again, I haven't walked through all of them. I think at this point, most people realize that we probably shouldn't use the term gypsy. Now, I know, I have done some research into it. And of course, you are going to get other people who are of that culture who use the term gypsy and are fine with the term gypsy. But at this point, I do think that using Romani or another term that is not been used in a negative connotation is probably just a safe bet if you're going to be working with people's cultures. Now, what's interesting, because I did see this one, I thought, okay, I thought we were probably kind of past people using the term in a deck. In the text, like it does really go into a very specific, the Romani people are not from all one place. And so same as we think about Native Americans are not just one big homogenous tribe. They have separate individual tribes. And so this card is speaking directly to the Gitanos, who are a community of nomadic people that fled from northwestern India into Europe. But it's really talking about specific ones. I thought I looked this up, that were in a very specific area. So I don't know. I mean, if all through here in the description, they don't use the term gypsy. They use the term Gitanos. They don't use Romani or anything like that. So I just feel like two issues that I have with this. Right. Yeah. See, that's the problem, Mendy, is I think, but I don't know. I just feel like as deck creators at this point, this is a term we probably should just be careful of. It seems to be an obvious one. The other thing that I had issues with was just like, okay, embrace your inner gypsy. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to be about the Romani people than just, this kind of dancing and fiddling. And, there's a lot going on in that culture. And I feel like we always kind of see the same. It's either that they are fun loving or that they're kind of thieving and that type of thing. So I don't know. That one just kind of hit me wrong, just because I feel like this conversation's been had so many times but I do know, because I have looked this up from other decks, that there are groups of people who identify as gypsy people who have no issue with the terminology. So I don't know. If I was making the deck, I would probably avoid the term just to not use it. But again, beautiful artwork. Yeah, I agree. And you have to also, this is from Blue Angel, which is an Australian deck. And generally the people creating them are Australian. I don't know if all, but generally so. And so obviously some cultures that is more of a derogatory term or not. But if we're publishing a deck out there into the world, and that does seem to be a problematic term, Yeah, and it's not in the text, so I feel like that could have been easy. I don't think you would have even had to put that on the card. I think you could have literally just put, embrace your freedom. It's about freedom, fun, and music, but embrace the freedom of dance. Or I don't know. I feel like you could have put anything on there besides that. So that's just that's personal opinion on that. Okay, so moving on, we have, but again, the text here I thought was very, very, interesting. I hadn't actually even heard of I've heard of other terms, but I hadn't heard of Gitano. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. So I thought this text was quite interesting. So, okay, moving on. Enjoy music, instrument, sound, and tone. The Amara, again, I'm going to show it here because I could be slaughtering that, of South America, were one of the first civilizations to create and use panpipes. I love panpipes. There was some place that I used to go that always had an old, somebody from South America, I believe Peru maybe, that would sit and play panpipes. And I had one of their CDs, like they would distribute CDs. And I had one of their CDs back in the day when it wasn't digital music. And it's just so beautiful. Like panpipes are absolutely gorgeous. And so I love this. And I also just like that they have music in here, and that the idea of tone being brought in is nice, and sound and tones, and pulling that into reading, I think could really be beautiful. So and it's just gorgeous card. So that's gorgeous. Austin says, my ancestors are gypsy and we still use that's, yeah, some people do. And then yet you get a lot of pushback. I don't know. I feel like you're probably, it's one of those things maybe to allow people to call themselves what they want to call themselves, but be careful in terms of a global deck of maybe stepping back away from anything that could be derogatory. I don't know. It's a difficult terrain. I am not going to even begin to lie. I think that when you are working with multicultural decks, one of the problems is, right, that you can, you have to be so careful to try to get the best information out there that you can, and to be the most respectful as you can of each of the different cultures. And so it really gets to be difficult terrain to tread for sure. And I do believe, just from this, right, just from having a section on each of the cultures and separating people out into their specific cultures, to me, the intention to be respectful seems to be very evident, which is good to see. Okay, so here we have that. Ooh, look at that. That's beautiful. So this, enjoy new beginnings, celebrate, socialize, and change. Again, I don't know. Some of the titles and keywords don't kind of resonate to me. And I don't know if it's because I do, ancestor work is such a part of my practice and it's such a powerful thing that some of them feel a little more lighthearted than I think about, like working with your ancestors. But at the same time, my ancestors have a sense of humor. And, so I think some lightheartedness and humor certainly come into play. So I'm not sure why I was kind of iffy about that. And some of it just kind of strikes me as a little less powerful than maybe they could be, some of the titles. But this is talking about Germanic tribes that are celebrating. I have no clue, even though I have Germanic blood. It doesn't translate into speaking. I have no clue what that is. Germanic tribes observe this term. Maybe somebody on here with Germanic terminology can say what that is. The 12 smoky or hairy nights that occur during the dark days of winter when there are no sunlight. People thought the sun stopped during those 12 nights to allow the solar and human years to resynchronize. During this time, that I'm not going to slaughter, the Germanic people smoked the evil winter spirits out of their homes. That is awesome. It is believed that the god Wotan went on a wild hunt on Sylvester night. I too love the little bits of, if it would be morning nights, maybe like morning. Nikki is saying maybe like like you're mourning the dead, not mourning dead, so to speak. I agree with Kelly. Terms like gypsy, better be worried when you're not educated. Yeah, I feel like it's a kind of like that. It's a iffy enough one to avoid. I agree. Okay, so beautiful. I love this. I like the wintry feel. You can definitely feel the dramatic energy. I love the crows and the wolves. This definitely speaks to certainly my heritage, my Scandinavian, I suppose would be the best term, heritage. Okay, here we have explore your creative side, visualize, paint, and record. And again, what I like to see here is, thank you, Mrs. Or MRS, LLCP, Gitanos or Span. I knew they came from a very specific place. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I thought that was really interesting because because it was from, again, going to a specific even culture of a larger culture, which is what I'm appreciating about this deck. And even here, like you could take cave painting, right, and just say this general, okay, it's, general cave painting, but it's very specific to the, oh my goodness, the Aurignacian people who lived in the forests of southwestern France 38,000 years ago. So it's making me happy that there's at least the attempt to go specific into what we're looking at. Visualizing, painting, recording. So we've got writing, we have singing and the use of sound in the deck so far. We have the visualizing and painting and making a record that we would think of cave paintings as creating a record. So I do like that we're seeing those different ways of engaging that I think is quite powerful. Miss Nikki says Rauschnacht, a very old and mystic tradition which is given special attention in many European countries, are the 12 holy nights around the turn of the year, also called Rauschnacht. I don't know. But they are smudging in a form from smoke or burning incense, herbs, that type of thing, to burn out or smoke out the evil spirits, which they're also called smoke nights. Thank you, Miss Nikki. I'm going to have to now figure out how on earth to say that. That's another thing, though, is I know that a lot of times people associate smudging as being a Native American, specifically a Native American practice, but it's actually the idea of burning herbs and using smoke and these types of things are something that you see across many cultures. Now, they would use obviously different types of things. I think in Scotland they used like juniper would be used, and so they might be using different herbs and things of their area. So Joe says, so would it be Christianity, the 12 nights of Christmas? I don't know if they're connected. We do know that the Roman Catholic Church, when it came into different cultures, instead of telling them, no, you can't have this, deity, or you can't have this festival, they just incorporated it into that's the 12 days of Christmas. We're going to do that, right? Oh, you like Christmas tree? Okay, sure. We'll have Christmas trees to honor Christmas, right? So the Roman Catholic Church, in going in and subsuming many cultures, took on those particular things so that the people would be more likely to convert if they could continue to do the things that they like to do. So I don't know if that's how we got converted to the 12 days of Christmas, but it would not surprise me at all. Okay, moving on. Here we have family connections with the Samoan people. They believed Tagaloa, the supreme ruler and creator of the universe, created the people out of the earth. And this really speaks to family connections, having respect, having the people around you that are important, and the idea of kinship is being pulled into play here. I really love the artwork in this deck. Beautiful. This is obviously Mongolia. I have one of these. I can't remember what they're called. My sister-in-law is Mongolian, and my two nephews and niece are half Mongolian, and my brother, and they all live in Mongolia. So I love to see that there and showing up in the deck as that sort of adopted in tradition here. Find your voice, express yourself, and open up and sing out. Yeah, so they're talking about Mongolian throat singers. My sister-in-law can throat sing. Her mother was an amazing throat singer. I have heard recording. And my sister-in-law can throat sing as well. So again, I like this use of voice. We had writing, we had painting, we had tones and sounds and instruments. Now we have using our voice to honor. So I am liking how we're seeing all of these various ways to express in our connecting with our ancestors and our working with ancestral energy, really diving into even in the Gitano card that we had, expressing the body for dancing. We had the writing expression, like using all parts of self to express and connect with the energy, I think is really beautiful theme that's kind of playing out. So I quite like that. Here we have focus on children, pregnancy, birth, and adoption. And this is interesting because this is a card they're talking even about the blending of that, not, very few. That's the one thing, because I've been interested in obviously DNA. I have done my DNA. A lot of my family members have done their DNA. And so I've just been interested. I watch a lot of people revealing their DNA ancestry. And there's very, very, very few. I think I can think of all of the videos that I've watched of people checking on their DNA, very few. One was a Scandinavian girl. I don't know if she was Swedish, and she was 100% Swedish. It was there was nothing else there. But the very few people, most of us are a mix of variety of different things as people migrated, as people intermarried, as all of those types of things coming into being. And so in this case, they're using Jamaica because in Jamaica, there was such a blend of elements that were coming in, cultural elements, religious elements, historical elements that were all coming in into this very small island. And so they're using Jamaica here as this idea of focusing on the children, but the card itself is also talking about that way in which our cultures blend. So I think that's really beautiful. Oh, this is beautiful. Hello, Pishan. I just read that this adaptation and incorporation of different religious practice is called syncretism. Syncretism, maybe. I might be slaughtering that. Well, and it makes sense, right? It's smart if you're going to go in and try to overtake something to incorporate as much as them, because you're going to have people resist less. It's sneaky, right? Here we have get into nature, coexist, gather, and limit waste. And so this is speaking to the I just really don't want to slaughter everybody's names. Lingit people, I don't know if the T is silent or not, from Alaska that we have here. And so it's really being in tune with, not wasting, coexisting with our environment versus going in and destroying our environment, right? That's really beautiful. She's obviously standing in the midst of trees. And the patterning on both the totem as well as the her clothing is gorgeous. Okay, I'm guessing we have some more, maybe Anglo-Saxons or, oh no, my Scottish, Robert de Bruce, my Scottish side. I am 33% Swedish, 26% Scottish, and the little bits I can't think of, but anyways. Oh, thank you, Myrna. Of course, I probably slaughtered your name in slaughtering that. Pronounce clink. Oh, see, yeah, I guess, how would you know? So this is potentially pronounced clinklet. I'm just not gonna. Thank you. I appreciate. You can look in the chat bar because it stays with these live ones and see how to pronounce it correctly. Thank you so much. So this is Robert de Bruce. Go after your goals. Persist. Of course, he claimed the Scottish throne, and he was born in 74. So this speaks to the Scottish people and this pursuit of your goals. Persist, push forward, advance. So we've got some Scottish energy in there. Go with the flow, let go, rest, and manifest. Indigenous from Fiji is what they would be. Refer to themselves as Kai Viti. Viti meaning the islands and Kai meaning people. So people of the islands. Lots of feasting, lots of ceremony. Yes, you know what, maybe we should look in the back, Miss Nikki. That's a good suggestion. No, sometimes I thought maybe in the back it would show like a pronunciation guide. I've seen 1 or 2 guides that did put the pronunciation in, but you know what? The problem is that even when you look up pronunciations of these different things, you can sometimes get 5 different ways to pronounce. I have gone through on other decks and kind of looked up, okay, how would you pronounce this? And you get so many different variations that if you put it in print, you would get a few of them wrong and then be jumped on for them being wrong. I don't know. It's a hard one. But I agree. But as Joe said, what I'll do is I will go through, and this is again, first impressions, right? So on my other decks, I just write it up at the top. I go through and if it's something I don't know, I try to find what it is and just write it out in just not anything fancy, just in how you might say it. So, you know, doing that also gives you a chance to look up a little bit more about the culture. So yeah, but it would be nice just to have it in parentheses, a way to pronounce it as you're going. Okay, so here we have that one. All right, we're getting sidetracked here. Let's see. Surprise, surprise. Have courage. So here we have the Miss Nikki has been Googling. Thank you. Masi, I'm not entirely sure. Again, I'm going to point it out here so that you can see it. People of Kenya and Tanzania have stayed true to tradition despite losing much of the land to European settlement. And so it really speaks of fearlessness in the face of overtaking. And again, every culture, like any culture that we talk about on the planet Earth, has had to deal with encroachment, has had to deal with, tribes moving into other tribes' territories, like this pushing and this migrating and this interlopers coming in. This has been, as long as there are humans, this has been an issue. And so having something about really having courage and standing and holding to your traditions is very important. So I think that that's a beautiful card. Miss Joe said, or Mr. Joe, I'm so sorry. I need to stop doing that. Let's see. Says perhaps Masai. That doesn't even help me. Sai, maybe. Look it up. One of the things you can do is Google. What I try to start with is I will type in the name and how to pronounce. And then a lot of times something will come up so that you can then push and actually hear it, which can be more helpful to people than seeing it on the page. Because even in those pronunciation guides, there's a way to write out properly pronunciation. Those don't always help me because it really doesn't, the ways that they use it, or however they're notating sound, I don't know. And thank you. Thank you, Joe. So I like to hear it if I can. And again, you can listen to 5 different ones and they can be slightly different, but at least it helps a little bit to be able to at least maybe hear somebody saying it if you're struggling like me, sometimes even with seeing it put into the pronunciation language or format. So next we have honor the deities around you. And obviously we can all probably tell this is Egyptian, and really talks about how the culture of the ancient Egyptians had a huge pantheon of deities, all of whom had specific roles to play. Over 2,000 gods and goddesses were thought to be at work influencing everything from the people, the weather, the seasons, the crops, to natural disasters. And so that's a great culture prefer to use for honoring the deities, bringing in prayers and offerings, and thinking about, when you're working with your ancestors, if you're like me, who has 3 or 4 different distinct cultural lines, right? There's going to be within that different deities within those different cultures. And so the honoring the deities of your ancestors can certainly get to be quite diverse depending on what your cultural makeup is of your ancestors. So I like that is included in the deck. This is beautiful. Interact and relate. This is the Maori culture, and I'm not going to say what this greeting is called because I will definitely slaughter that. But a particular form of greeting and showing respect, every showing connection and showing respect here, community, family, and tradition. So respecting the traditions perhaps of your reading. I've been watching lots of Discovery Channel documentaries and a lot of things pop up here. Nice. Here I'm assuming this is Tibet. Let's see. I shouldn't assume because I'm wrong. Due to its remote location in the eastern Himalayas, Bhutan has been largely self-reliant and protected from invasions. Bhutan is a name used by outsiders. The inhabitants call their homeland Druk Yul, meaning land of the thunder dragon. Despite its isolation, Buddhism arrived in Bhutan as early as the 7th century CE and was well-founded part of the culture from the 8th century onward. It's considered to be, I don't know what this is, Bhutan has significantly reduced poverty and its economy has seen consistent growth. It remains one of the happiest places on earth, apparently. Smile, positive energy, and joyfulness here. And obviously, I am sure that there are difficulties as there are in every culture. When I got my ancestor, I'm not going to lie, keep it real, keep it honest. When I got my DNA test, I was really hoping to have like 1% of Moana. Not necessarily a specific Polynesian culture, but 1% of Moana in my DNA. And I was quite disappointed to not have that be the case. Now, this is talking about Polynesia, so they are talking about all of the Hawaiian Islands, not just one specific one. And in this case, they are talking about hula, which you find throughout the Hawaiian Islands, and about moving your body, dancing and breathing and flowing. And what I like is that we do have another dance one with the Gitano one, right? But that's like more, it looks like more, music is playing and you're just freedom of movement and freedom of dancing. Whereas when you think about hula, that's much more ceremonial. It's much more very specific. It's much more controlled, beautiful, controlled movements and flow, which I think is really gorgeous. So we have different kinds of working with your body energy. Ooh, this looks very like European elves, nature spirits, elves, fairies, and rock formations. I do very much connect ancestral energy with the Fae realm. I do think that many Celtic ideologies, of course, we don't know a whole lot, the whole Reconstruction versus trying to figure out what was actually there, and we don't know a lot of that because obviously we don't have the written context outside of the Christian lens. But there is this idea of the Summerlands and the afterlife being this mix of ancestors and Fae energy that really connects with me. I have a DNA kit waiting to go, says Joe, but my connection to ancestors do not keep to racial or location connections. Yeah, and I agree. Those are separate things, and I've talked about that before, that, the story of our ancestry. I think people, if they get a DNA kit, can sometimes be really disappointed because the DNA that's in you is very random, right? Literally is random. I have 7 siblings, and of the ones, I have 6 siblings, I am the 7th. And of our DNA is generally of the same type. Obviously, it comes from the same place, but the proportions and things are very different. And I have siblings that have DNA that I don't have, and so and vice versa. And so DNA is just a piece of that. And so I love diving into DNA, but I also dive into the stories of my ancestry, which can look very different than my personal genetic makeup. And then on top of that, there is also ancestry that is of land and other types of things that aren't specifically tied to blood. So it's just a piece of the puzzle, but I do enjoy that particular piece. That's just how my family has always been. Like, our lineage has been very important. We know even before my DNA, nothing showed up in my DNA that I wasn't expecting, because we do put a lot of weight on our heritage. But it's not the whole story. Anyways, moving on. Oh, so what was I saying? Anyways, I do connect Fae energy with ancestral energy. All kind of goes together for me. So this is I froze there for a minute. Oh, I was probably just talking to myself. It looked like I froze. The Holdefolk. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, or hidden people of Iceland, are strange elf-like creatures who live in mounds. Of course, we see that across Europe. It is thought that Holdefolk can connect with humans through dreams, telepathy, and direct connection. So I love that. So I would say it's something to do even with connection and messaging in some ways could also go into this particular card. It's beautiful. I'm really drawn to that. Notice a sign. So it obviously has a Triskel on here, which I have a tattoo of. Notice the signs, investigate symbols, and also connected to nature symbols of the Celtic people. I do like that this talks about the Celtic people as being in Central Europe. As Celtic people are not just Irish people, right? The Celts gradually expanded their presence throughout Western Europe, arriving in the British Isles from 500 BC. So I do again like that the guidebook is talking about understanding these things in a little bit of either a broader context like with this, or in a very specific context when we're talking about tribes. So I'm definitely, I feel like they've at least put the effort in, and I love that. Here we have open to love, relationships, passion, and fulfillment. Kalasha from Pakistan. Kalasha have been lived in remote villages in isolation between northern Pakistan, Chitral Valley, and the Afghan border. Many of the Kalasha are blonde-haired and blue-eyed, a look that is different to other tribes in Pakistan. The Kalasha also stand out for their culture and outlook on life. They are polytheistic. They prefer to make love, not war. And they have a unique approach to relationships. The Kalasha women are sexually liberated, and loveless liaisons hold no appeal for these spirited women. Kalasha women can choose their husbands, but if the union doesn't work out, she can contract another man that she likes. She can let him know how much the current husband paid in dowry, so he can try to double that up. A couple might elope and get married even if the woman is still married to someone else. The freedom of relationships Kalasha people have enjoyed for centuries is radically different from the patriarchal codes of many parts of the earth. So that's what we have here. I've not heard of them before, and I will definitely be doing some more research because that's interesting. This is the one image that I saw that I thought was absolutely beautiful, was very appealing. Joe said the Celts need care. I know. But I do feel like that people sometimes just hear Celtic and they think Irish. And maybe that's just people in the US, and certainly, I don't know. But I do feel like a lot of times people think of the Celtic, when you see like Celtic jewelry, people think you're talking just Irish, like Irish knotwork or Irish jewelry. And of course, you see that knotwork all across the area because the Celts were all across Europe. And so, so I do like that at least they point that out. So these are the Berber. The early Berber people lived in northwestern Africa from around 10,000 BCE. The Berbers were well-known traders who transported goods by camel caravan from the Sahara Desert to Morocco. When I went to Africa, there were some Berber people in the, we went to like a outdoor market, and there were some Berber people that were there as well. The Berbers of Morocco believed in spirits called jinns that can act like humans and take on different forms, such as that of an animal. People might call on an evil jinn to harm an enemy. The shape of the hand, or a hamza is what I've heard of it as. The shape of a hand, often with an eye in the center of the palm, the hamza, is incorporated into jewelry and wall hangings for protection against jinns and other forms of black magic. So psychic strengths, shields, talismans, gold lights, setting up boundaries are going to be important. I don't know if you can hear Isabel, but she is snoring so loud right there on the couch. I'm like, oh my goodness. I apologize if you hear snoring in the periphery of sound. It's my little dog, because she's a loud snorer. Here we have re-energize your life, clear, positive space, harmony. And this is talking about feng shui and talking about the history of it, that it dates back so long again, this idea of even in their setting up of their cities, setting things to be just right, to set it to so that the energy is correct and all of that going on. So that's not anything that is new, which I think sometimes we mistake that for something that is new, but it's quite old. And so creating harmony in your space here. Oh, look at Mother Earth. Again, looks very beautiful. Reconnect with Mother Earth, plants, garden, harvest. This is from the Incan culture, renowned for engineering and adaptation. The Incan people transformed the plains, deserts, mountains, and tropical jungles by constructing roads, buildings, terraces, canals, and irrigation networks. It's interesting that this is maybe is Pachamama, and I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I have another deck with her that she shows up all of the time. It's either Pachamama, or Pac. I don't know if that CH is a hard C. Is akin to Mother Earth. She represents the feminine soul of nature and is the provider of life, food, animals, and water. She is connected to the mountains and could cause earthquakes, but also has the power to sustain life. So that is beautiful card. Again, I really love this artist. She's amazing. Remember who you are. This is the Ainu. Ainu people of northern Japan were animists who handed down their cultural knowledge through rituals, storytelling, and songs. Traditionally, Ainu women had their arms and lips tattooed when they were old enough to be married. The lip tattoos were also for keeping away evil spirits and enabled the bearer to reunite with her loved one in the afterlife. Beautiful. Look at the bear. Look at that face of the bear. I wish she would do an animal deck. Oops, focus in. I feel like she could make an amazing animal deck. This looks like a little gnome. Maybe from Norway or somewhere there. Let's see. Nope. Finish. Respect your physical body. Detox, rejuvenate, relax. And this is a sauna place here, and this would be from the Finnish culture to sort of detox, let out that energy going in there. Rejuvenate, relax, detox. Oh, that's beautiful colors here. The Huli Wigmen, and I'm probably, again, here we go. This is the Huli Wigmen. I know I shouldn't. Don't even dare to say words. No, I shouldn't say words. These are from the southern highlands of Papua New Guinea for the past few thousand years. Ferocious warriors who wear wild, elaborate wigs that are created from their own hair and beautiful colored feathers. So shine brightly, stand out, be proud, and to be individual. Um, the wig making process is extremely important for the males of the Huli, as their individuality is expressed through their extravagant wigs and face paint. So it's not that everybody's going to have the exact same face painting or the same wigs. It's that they each are going to strive to be their own individual through that. So that's beautiful. Oh, that's gorgeous, spirit guides. And this is to the Lakota. Again, I know if people are I'm going to get comments saying you said it 50 times, but I think it's important. It's not just, Native American, it's the Lakota. This is representing the Lakota, belonging to the Great Sioux Nation, a group of tribes indigenous to North America. And then it talks about the practice of whatever this might be pronounced, crying or questing for a vision. And so using that to gain guidance, to get insight, guidance, and have purpose. Nikki's going to stop using words and just smile or frown. Might be safest. I'm assuming this is probably Greek or Roman, maybe Roman. Take time out, siesta. Now, that's kind of a little strange. Maybe I'm wrong. It says, I was going to say siesta, I don't think is a Latin word, but it does address it. It says that to eat a leisurely lunch and have a siesta, a rest or a sleep, which comes from the Latin hora sexta, meaning 6 hours. So see, what do I know? This is why you try to learn things, because I would have thought siesta was from Mexico, Spanish from Mexico or South America. I would have thought of siesta there, not in Rome. That's for sure. They're talking about the ancient Romans and their use of this time period of resting as well. So we have that there with the Romans. We have teach and share. Now this is talking about Buddhism in general, but it does then go specific into Tibetan Buddhism, where great emphasis is placed on the spiritual masters and teachers of the Dharma. These teachers are called lamas and complete extensive studying. So this does kind of go into the Tibetan Buddhism, which is a much more formal, I always liken it to, because I was a Zen Buddhist, so I always likened Tibetan Buddhism as sort of like Roman Catholicism, in terms of the ritual and the specific, whatever, you know what I mean. Very more ritualized aspect of Buddhism. But this is leaning into the idea of teaching and going to these teachers, which I do think is part and parcel to all Buddhism and probably any spiritual practice. I did not know that. Myrna says Spanish is a Romance language and has its roots in Latin. Thank you. I did not know that. I would not have necessarily connected the two. But yeah. Treat your body well. Exercise, meditate, and massage. These are Thai. So this is from Thailand. Thai massage Nuat Thai combines Ayurvedic. Isn't that Hindu? I guess there's some crossovers between Buddhism and Hinduism, but principles, acupressure, and assisted yoga positions. The technique is based on energy lines in and along the body. So exercise, meditate, massage, kind of open up your ley lines, your inner ley lines. It does look like a wrestling move, doesn't it? But no, we are not wrestling here. We are opening up the energy lines. Here we have tune in and connect. I'm assuming this would be Australian Indigenous people. One of the oldest living cultures, the indigenous peoples of Australia, share a song with the land, the sky, and everything between. Nonverbal communication, intuition, messages. So this is beautiful because, again, as I said, there's a theme running through some of the cards that I'm loving, which is that spoken, written communication, spoken communication, communicating with the body, and free dancing or very rhythmic and intentional dancing of the body, and so on and so forth. We've seen painting, different ways to express and communicate. And in this one, we have nonverbal and just being in complete connection there, which is really beautiful. Maybe this would be Greek then, I'm going to guess. I don't know why I'm trying to guess. Like, are we in a guessing game? Upskill, work, career, crossroads. The philosophy, sciences, and technologies of the ancient Greek civilizations had a significant impact on many cultures. Education was highly valued and focused on the arts of peace and war. So we have the Greek image here. And then this is the last, no, yeah, this is the last one. Whole self health. So this is talking about the Vedic tradition called Soma, was a sacred drink that was stolen from the gods and gifted to humans by Agni, the fire god. Soma was prepared in sacred ritual and consumed by the Vedic priests for stimulation and to give them spiritual inspiration, wisdom, and courage. Drinking Soma blessed gods and goddesses with immortality, and consumption by humans was said to have the same effect. So here we have talking about the Vedas and the so on and so forth. Natural therapies, balance, and I'm not sure if that's how you say Ayurvedic. Ayurvedic. There's one of those words that I see all the time, but I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. So here we have that. And I do like this in terms of the ancestors. We haven't really looked at the ancestor speak or divinatory meanings. Just been looking at the cultures as we first impressions our way through it. But it talks about looking at your whole self, right? That we have to treat ourselves, not just our spiritual self, right? Our physical self has an impact on how we feel energetically, how our spiritual connections are, how we can't be perfectly healthy in body and then have our spirit and our soul in complete shambles. Does not a healthy human being make, right? And so it is a combination of all of those things and taking care of ourselves as a whole that creates healthy individuals, not just one or the other. So I do like that as being a card there. So there we have it. Let me zoom out here. Oops, or zoom in. How are we doing with time? I was trying to keep it around an hour, so we didn't do too horribly. I'm trying to keep these, I do my walkthroughs are generally about an hour, and the live ones definitely take longer, but I'm trying to keep it close to that. Plus, like I said, today is like a work day. I just needed to break it up so that I wasn't doing all the same thing all day, and trying to sort of do a little bit of this, do a little bit of that, and throw the cards around here. I will definitely be edging these in black because, we have all this dark and it's almost black to the outsides and just rich color. So I definitely will not be leaving these, the white edges there. I will be trimming those in black because I think that will look amazing. So that is what I'll be doing with these. Let's pull 3 for ourselves and see what we get. The artwork is really gorgeous, Austin. I completely agree. Oh, thank you so much, Miss Nikki. Let's just see. I'm giving another. I mean, it's cardstock wise, this is Blue Angel at its best, in my opinion. When it's this matte cardstock that they have. It shuffles easy. It riffles, as you just saw, easy, even though it's large. It overhands well. I really do think all of their decks should be made from the same cardstock because it's great cardstock. It holds up well. all of my Blue Angel decks have always held up really well, even when they used to do the laminate. So Blue Angel does boxes well, and they do cardstock generally very well as well, now that they don't do so many borders. It used to be with Blue Angel, it was always like borders inside borders. Like it was not just one border, it was like multiple borders. So I do love that they're kind of, whoa, well, hello, let's just see what you have to say, and then we'll split it again. Upskill, work. I'm not sure about this, the word upskill. I mean, is that a popular word? I've not heard of that being used, but I'm assuming that is like improving yourself. Like if you're going to on a career track, you're continually moving forward, you're learning more, you're increasing your knowledge and your awareness. So I'm assuming that that's what that means. I will definitely be looking up on some of these. But the term upskill is not something that I, in my like just everyday life, have heard people use. But let's get an actual reading, not the top falling off. It looks great. Rockpool has changed their card stocks now. Rockpool is one of those that doesn't, on the surface, the cards don't look like good cardstock. It tends to be super glossy. It tends to be super thin. But I've got a couple of the older Rockpool cardstock that, while it doesn't seem very thick, it has held up really, really well. It's like kind of sad to see that they're changing it for the worse potentially. I'll have to pay attention to some of my newer ones. Obviously, as a riffle shuffler, I don't like super thick cardstock. This is really nice cardstock. It's like that perfect in between. All right, let's see what we can see. Re-energize your life. Clear some positive space. Kind of set things up in your work to be harmonious. Answer the call. So set your space well so that you can go out. I like that combination too. I will say, so for Ancestor work with Oracle cards, I don't tend to pull 3. So I'm generally, for myself, when I sit down in space, I'm generally pulling 3 tarot cards, and I usually pull 1 Oracle card. So I don't generally pull 3 like these. I wouldn't pull 3 of these particular cards. I would probably just pull 1. But I do like this. Set your space well so that you can go out. You've got that foundation and that space behind you that is harmonious, and this allows you to go out, because Vikings, didn't live on the water. They had home bases. And so it's like, okay, set your space and have a good, safe, harmonious space to go out from. And then you're going to be able to connect and all that kind of stuff forward. What is Miss Jerry William had a question for you in the beginning. What is your opinion is the best ancestral deck? That is so hard to answer. Because I'm trying to think, none of the deck I'm looking at my ancestral space with decks out. None of the decks that I use in ancestral space are what I would say are ancestral decks, right? Other than the Ancestral Path Tarot that I used the first, I have the first edition too that I use down there. That is a beautiful tarot deck. Now, I will say that the current modern deck is huge and it's kind of cumbersome to work with, especially in my ancestral space. So I do have the first edition, which I love and is much smaller, but that's the only deck that I use in ancestral space that is an actual ancestor deck. So, in my ancestral readings that I do with clients, I'm most often using the Shamans Oracle by John Matthew and oh my goodness, I can't remember the artist there. But anyways, if you look up the Shamans Oracle by John Matthews, you'll find it. It's a small, wretched cardstock, but wonderful deck. So I use that a lot. I don't think we actually have like tons of decks that are based off of ancestral. I love the other deck that I do love. I'm looking at it. Sorry, is the Angels and Ancestors deck that is similar to this in that it uses a variety of cultures. It also has lots of sets, so you definitely do see male and female, because unfortunately in Oracle decks, a lot of times we don't get a lot of males. Now that's another thing that I will say. Let's just play a little bit, right? We're allowed to play. So we have both, right? But you do seem to see a lot that's got both female, male, not either, both. Who knows? I would just guess both. That looks to be male, male, male. They look to be male. And again, I'm just like quickly going through these. There could be more going on here, but this looks like we actually have a lot of male characters. And let's be honest, unfortunately, in Oracle decks, we don't, we don't see that. And so here we actually, just straight, we have quite a lot of them are both. And then I would say, without counting, that there's maybe even a few more males represented on the card than females, and by just a card or two. And so that's fantastic, because unfortunately in Oracle decks today, they are generally much stronger based in female. Oracle decks in general have much more decks that are almost entirely female in my experience. And so having a deck that, like Angels and Ancestors, or like this, where we really do see, and we should, right? Obviously, if we're talking about our ancestors, we have all different traditions. So that's good to see, because we don't get a lot of that in Oracle decks. We do have two kind of random ones in here that don't have, ancestors on them. I'm sorry, and I got sidetracked from Gary's question. So, yeah, so that's, I would say that, for me, again, for me approaching my ancestral work, I tend to lean towards more, like I do have some decks that I use that are reminiscent of the cultures of my ancestors. I do have, some decks that are, I have particular ancestral energy that I'm working with that seems to be represented by a specific deck. So I tend to use decks that are more connecting me to whatever energy that I'm working with than like specific ancestor decks. But the only ancestor decks that I know that I think I have are Angels and Ancestors, obviously this one now, and the Ancestral Path Tarot. Now, that could be wrong, but that's what's coming to mind. Weaver's Oracle is very grandmother energy that feels, it's not ancestral, but it feels very ancestral. So I don't pick decks to work with my ancestors based on whether it's an ancestor deck, and more based on things that are connected to whatever energy I'm trying to connect to. In terms of books, I really love the Ancestral Medicine book, which I'll put in the link below. I can't think of the name and I can't read it from here, but it's called Ancestral Medicine. And then I've been looking at a book which I've quite enjoyed. I've read it, and I think I did a review of it on my Patreon, but it's called Ancestral Path Tarot. No, it's over there. I can't read it. But those two books that I do recommend on ancestral work, I will put it in. I'll try to go right from here and put those books that I recommend on ancestral work in the description box of this video. So yes, Miss Nikki, more the energy of my ancestral energy. So if I'm sitting down to work, maybe with a particular, I'm doing some healing work with a particular line of my ancestors that are associated with a particular culture, I might be pulling a deck that just represents that versus an actual ancestor deck, if that makes sense. And I think some of that is I can't even really name off, like there's not a ton of decks that are just specifically about ancestors, which is why I was excited to see this one come out. So because we do have that all in one deck, and again we have Angels and Ancestor, which I worked for a lot. Yes, I have Primordial down there. I use the Primordial Tarot for like kind of that deep going back into the really ancient. Obviously the farther back that we go, we're going into these really primordial energies that are in some ways, for my opinion, like outside of cultural Moors. And so I do really love to use a Primordial Tarot for that. That one is really great work with that. So that's actually down there as well. So yeah, but that's more the point. I guess that Miss Group makes my point. Like that makes it's more about those sort of concepts in the decks that I'm looking for to work in ancestral space than like a deck that's just particular ancestor. There's also a good ancestor deck for that Celtic base by Caitlin Matthews. That's on my list of decks to work with more because I haven't spent a lot of time with it yet. But she has one that is is it called the Ancestral Path? I'll have to find it's in my cubicle of stuff that I would like to work with more. And that would of course go more directly towards my Celtic heritage. So yeah, it's kind of based more for me on that. Like what is the work that I'm trying to do? What is the energy that I'm connecting to with my ancestors? And then the deck that reflects that. That was a very long-winded answer to your question. I'm sorry. but it wasn't quite so simple as just saying, okay, this is my favorite deck that I use with ancestral work, because my most used would be the Shamans Oracle by John Matthews, which is got a suit. One of the suits in the Shamans Oracle ancestors. And so when that comes up, that one of those cards from a suit, that for me is like going back to like primordial type ancestral energy. So my most used deck in ancestral work is the Shaman's Oracle. But in my personal practice, it depends on what I'm doing in ancestral space. So that's the short and the long of it. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised. Again, I do, in a nutshell, think that what they did is at least do that. I really love how they went into cards that were very specific to cultures, and we got the information about what cultures were they attempting to portray and talk about. Right now, again, I have not gone through what I would generally do with goddess decks, with any decks like this that have historical information in them, is I will sit down and I will go through the deck. You can look at any of my Goddess Oracle decks or Gods decks, any decks that have specific information. I do try to, just as a way of, if I'm going to use that deck, again, as I think Joe said, don't be hesitant to do your own work, right? Because you don't know what kind of work that was done for to research for this deck. We have certainly seen decks that were well researched, and we've seen decks that have not been so well researched. So I will generally sit down with the guidebook in hand and sort of do my Google searches. Again, I'm just kind of going to do a skimming like I do to research. I've done a lot of research for papers and things in college, and I just kind of start to go through each one, do a quick search, and just see, does that information seem to be in alignment? And I just can't write down any notes on the book that I might, any pronunciations, if I can find a good pronunciation, and any information that whether or not I feel like, okay, is the information given something that at least is somewhat accurate. You know, I haven't done that with this book yet, but I like that at least the culture is given, so I don't have to guess and say, okay, what are they trying to represent? And instead, I can you know, do my due diligence on that. And the other way you could do that, if you don't want to go through it like with the book, is that as you pick that card, right, go to the guidebook, say, oh, okay, well, this is speaking to the Maori people and this specific, and they've gone very specific to specific rituals. So then looking up the Maori people and that specific ritual. And so as you've drawn that card, use that as an opportunity to go in and do a little bit more research on it, because yes, decks can be very slipshod sometimes about things, and that, you know, you can still work with that. You're just going to have to do your own due diligence and find those things out yourself and make sure you don't just take it as being gospel, so to speak. But I like that it looks like at least due diligence was done to be very specific about groups and cultures with names, and it's not just Native American, it's not just Celtic, it's not just European, it's not just Scandinavian, right? It's very specific groups. So I do think that that is a very good step in the right direction, 100%. This deck looks like an improvement on the Angels and Ancestors. Yeah, although I love I do love the Angels and Ancestors deck. I do think this is an improvement because it separates the two. But you know, some people like I do connect Fae energy with Ancestors. I'm sure there are other people who might connect Angels with Ancestors. But as a reading deck, the Angels and Ancestors deck is, you know, for me has been a really beautiful experience. But I do think it's a step in the right direction for sure. I know I will put that on my list to just do a chatty. I'll start a fresh list here and stick it up on my screen. I will try to schedule that in. Life has just been crazy, but yes, schedule a hangout. There we go. How about that? I'll just schedule it into the book and I'll do like a pre-live thingy so you can prepare for it. Thank you, Miss Nikki. Okay, so I'm going to let you go. I got mucho work left to do in the day. I'm sure you all do as well. Enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, let me know in the comments if this is one that a couple people have had this for a while. I think it just came out in the US. I didn't even say that. Sorry, folks. Here we go. Me getting sidetracked again for a second. I think I was just able to purchase this because I've been watching this for a while. It says copyright 2021. Obviously, with Blue Angel, it comes out in Australia, and then I would say Europe tends to get it before the US. And, you know, let's be fair, a lot of things are the opposite direction, so I can't complain. But I'm pretty sure I was just able to order this on Amazon, you know, not too much longer than when I did order it. And I haven't had this very long. It just came in last week. So I do feel like this is relatively just coming out. But I know that some people are have had this for a little while, depending on where, you know, if they ordered it from Australia or if they're in Australia or if they're in Europe. And so far, people, at least in chat, seems to have enjoyed or are working with this deck well. Gina says, I have this deck, gorgeous artwork, and feels quite respectful to the cultures and communities. I edge my cards in different shades of green. Oh, I bet that's gorgeous. Al connects extraterrestrials with angels. I don't think you're the only person who does so, for sure. We all make different connections. Halcyon says, as hell drilled in my head, all the dead are your ancestors, especially those you never knew of. They are the foundation to stand on. I love that. Yes, I am definitely considering that, Miss L. It is probably at the moment my most requested class for sure. Okay, let's see. Anything else? I got Miss Nikki's written down here. Oh, here, let me click on this real quick. Oops, no, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, I guess I can't click on it because yeah, okay. All that will do is make it come up. So I'll check that. Um, but I think, yeah, I think it's called just the Shamans Oracle now. And that was probably an older version. But again, just Google Shamans Oracle. You can get it on Amazon. I have a couple copies backed up because the cardstock is wretched and I use it so much. So much. Okay, I'm going to go again. Thank you guys all for hanging out with me. Have a wonderful rest of your day.